And the reason I tell this part of my story, and it's literally just a page in this huge book we can go into,
Yes.
is I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't
Right.
see myself as a podcaster talking to the man right now today. Like, I did not see that in my future. But what I
Right.
didn't realize what was happening for me at that time is the curiosity, the love of learning, the growth mindset, the observational skills. I was pretty good at telling when my dad was drunk before I even knew what drunk was.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, folks. It's Audley Stevenson back for another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. You've got to lock the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for being here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. As always, I encourage you to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the handle The Audacious Pod, or you can subscribe to us on YouTube simply by tapping that bell down below. Ding, ding, ding. And that way you're connected to all great things audacious related. You know, when we're going through challenging or difficult periods in our life, they're going to happen. We're all going to experience it. It's unavoidable. We've talked about this topic on the podcast ad nauseum because it is real for everyone. It's unavoidable. However, our life story doesn't end, in the first inning after a terrible situation's taken place. When things go wrong, life still can continue. It's so important for us to understand that. And the other thing that's important to understand is each of us has a story to tell through our own life. When we stop and look back, we'll undoubtedly find moments of victory and successful accomplishments and reasons to be proud and smile. And at the same time, when we look back, we'll also see instances of pain and challenging moments and things that could make the process of living extremely difficult. My friend Ben Albert joins me on this edition of the Audacious Living Podcast, and we have a wonderful conversation about his personal story and things that he's had to endure to get him to the place where he is now. I think the key to understanding, you'll hear from Ben, is that life constantly evolves as we move forward. It's quite possibly that you can go from a zero one day to the hero as your story evolves and unravels. Ben is a podcaster himself, and you hear all about the work he does in that regard. And like I said, this is the Audacious Living Podcast. We had a wonderful conversation I truly think you'll all enjoy. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Ben Albert. Enjoy. Hey, Ben, thank you for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for being here. That's awesome.
Pleasure's all mine. I know you put hundreds of hours, a ton of time into this podcast, and I landed on the seat across from you. So I treat that as an honor.
Well, and as a podcaster yourself, thank you. And as a podcaster yourself, you would know very well, what that journey is like, and definitely a labor of love. To be able to consistently, and as you know, the internet space, it's a hungry beast, right? You can never feed it enough, right? So, every time you put something out, you got to put something else out because it's stale or old or whatever. But it is a labor of love, absolutely. And thank you for recognizing that, and I appreciate you for doing your work. And we'll talk about your 5 podcasts, but not really 5 podcasts in a moment here. You play in the marketing space. You very much focus in the areas of success and business. I wonder, maybe kind of as a starting point, we got listeners going, who the heck is Ben Albert? What's he all about? I wonder if you can perhaps kind of give us, fill our listeners in on you and the work you do.
I love the question, who are you? Who the heck is Ben? It's the best question and the most difficult question. Let me first ask you, how long do we have?
That's right. We'll go. We'll go to the wheels fall off. How's that?
And I've told this story, so I'll give the concise version. Ben was a quiet kid, like sitting here, you've got a big smile on your face. I love your energy. I was the shy kid when I was younger. I
Mm,
wasn't smiling, I was hiding in the corner, barely spoke the first 13 years of my life,
wow.
and wanted to be a basketball player.
Ah,
So loved basketball, jersey for every single day of the week. You can't tell because you're looking at me on camera, but I lived to be 5'8". And when I was younger, I was actually the shortest boy in school. The
okay.
only shorter person was a little Asian girl named Olivia Lee. So, what do you think happens? You're a shy kid, you're a quiet kid, you're playing sports, but you're tiny. You get pushed around,
Yeah,
kind of get beat up, you get
yeah,
bullied.
yeah.
And
Confidence issues, all that kind of stuff.
confidence issues, and I love my story and I love my family, and they've taught me so much, but I did have struggles. I mean, my father died from an alcohol addiction. My mom struggled from a neurological disorder, so my household wasn't the typical white picket fence. So I felt kind of disconnected at home, and then I
Yes,
felt disconnected at school. And the reason I tell this part of my story, and it's literally just a page in this huge book we can go into,
yes.
is I didn't see myself as an entrepreneur. I didn't
Right,
see myself as a podcaster talking to the man right now today. Like, I did not see that in my future. But what I
right.
didn't realize what was happening for me at that time is the curiosity, the love of learning, the growth mindset, the observational skills. I was pretty good at telling when my dad was drunk before I even knew what drunk was. And I
Right,
was pretty good at hiding from a bully well before they came towards me. So I developed some social observational skills that I didn't know I was developing.
right,
And
right.
now I get to market, I get to podcast, I get to help people put on live events and all those, my story's not that terrible. We all have stories like that.
Yeah.
That prepared me for this interview. So I'm blessed to be here. I'll say that one more time.
It is. So I love the idea, the concept rather of what our experiences prepare us for, right? In the moment when we're going through something that's painful, that's hard, that's challenging. It's really difficult to see that big picture perspective, to be able to say, this is going to serve a purpose for something. We just don't know what it is quite just yet. So to be able to do that, reflect on that, and be able to say, okay, all right, this is working for me, I think is a great thing.
I couldn't agree more. And I'll be honest. So I'm 31 years old. I didn't start soul searching like this until 29, 30.
Wow.
Pandemic really humbled me and I went inward. But what's brilliant is it doesn't matter if you're 3, 13, 31, 61, 91. If you can look back at your story, you're going to notice common themes and you can develop a lot of gratitude for even those hard moments in your life shaping the destiny of who you got to become. And I'm really just passionate, and I'm excited that I started doing this soul searching. But it's not like I'm like blissed out and brilliant. Like I just started figuring this stuff out.
Well, Ben, it's part of the process, right? Because the reality is we never arrive, we never get to that, and we're here, and
That's right.
we're done growing, evolving, and developing. It's an ongoing process, and so regardless when you started versus when I started, or when Sally started, or when Mary started, it's irrelevant because we're each on our own individual path. The question I'll ask you though is what triggered that for you?
Ooh, so COVID was a big trigger in my life. Um, I would never go back and ask for a second COVID, but COVID was an eye opener.
Mm,
Um, because at the time, I was actually a sales executive for a more corporate video production marketing firm, live in the United States and had clients in Texas, California, New York. People in Utah loved me. Don't know why. People in Wisconsin loved me. But I had clients all around the globe, not the globe per se, but the United States. Talk
sure.
about ethnocentrism all around the United States.
I
Um,
love it.
so when COVID hit, since I was a sales role and I was actually new to my division, I was one of the first people to be furloughed because there wasn't much income coming in because COVID stopped video production. There was no
Right.
travel, there was no video, there was no fulfillment.
Right.
What can you do, kind of thing. So that, oh man, it's so weird that COVID was a blessing, but it was because I fell into a dark place when I first got let go.
Hmm.
And it's funny. So imagine two categories. The category A is stuff that lights you up and fills you up. I had never been hiking more. I had never been reading
Wow.
more. I
Wow.
started binging on podcasts. I did a lot of introspection, during this time
Right.
because I had either worked two jobs or a school or college in a
Yep.
job most of my life in my career. Um, and then the second category is binge drinking, binge Netflixing,
Right.
binge
Right.
eating. So it's funny, you've got this section of things that are filling your cup. So imagine you're
Yes.
filling your bucket as high as you can, you're self loving. And then on the other end, you're cutting little holes in the bottom of the bucket with the
Yes.
drinking and the binging and the
Yes.
negatives. What do you think is going to happen to the water? You can keep filling
Yeah.
it, it's going to keep dripping out.
That's right. That's right.
And it was out of those moments of darkness, literally
Yep.
like laying. I've got a green screen. I'm not in this beautiful. I don't know if someone sees the video. I'm not in this beautiful getaway. I'm in a spare room. I've got a bed behind me. I'm using a green screen.
I love it.
I'm laying on that bed looking at, and this didn't happen once, this happened many times. I was
Yep.
looking at a handle of whiskey that I had drank a few days, just over a few days. I was on a podcast. He's like, you did like 40 servings. And I'm like, holy crap, why'd you
Wow.
do the math? Um, in the course of a few days. And yeah, you look yourself in the mirror, you're bloodshot, you have anxiety, you're in a bad spot, and you kind of realize that it's time to make a change. And then I did my best to take action to make those changes.
On taking that step and making that change. So that's that first work. That's nothing to minimize or to like, I want to acknowledge that. So congratulations. That first step is not always easy, right? You're leaving the familiar, however toxic and terrible it is for you, it's still familiar. And
It
so you're
is.
leaving that it's familiar, it's comfortable, all those things, and you're leaving that now to go into a new space. Oftentimes you're pulled into it, right? There's a calling, right? And you're pulled into it. You don't know, there's uncertainty for sure because you don't know what's really around the corner, and you're not even entirely sure why you're doing it, but you're going anyways. And so why that's really fitting for this podcast is an element of audacious that's required to take that first step, right? You think of it, you think a point, anyone that's had to make a significant or major decision, right? And they're at that point where they've got to make that first step. We've all got that feeling in our gut, right? That's like that queasy, like, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm not certain. But in spite of that feeling, we make it anyways. I would contend that because of that feeling, you should make that first step. And that's what I'm hearing when you share your story.
The most important step's the first step.
Yeah.
That's the most important step. And life is but a dance. Like you're going to make a step. A lot of times you're not leading the dance. You're just learning. You've got a partner, you've got an instructor. They're sending you in all different directions. That's what it's going to look like. But you can't get moving until you take the first step. And it's not always going to look the way we planned it to, but it doesn't have to look the way we planned it to?
Outfit or something, it's going to be awkward, it's going to be, not fit initially the right way, and you got to squeeze, stretch it out a bit, but you still go through that, and that's part of the growth process, because it absolutely is necessary part of, again, of our journey.
It's huge. The key word here is
Uh-huh.
our journey, ours. It's individual. I've
Yeah.
said this once, I'll say it a million times. What happens if you get in trouble, you get arrested, they take your finger, they take your fingerprint. Why do you
Yes.
think they take your fingerprint? Because every individual is unique. So this isn't about your journey, even though I'm sure it's freaking incredible. It's not about my journey. it's about each and every one of our journeys. It's going to look different for all of us, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and that's why there's great danger in the comparison, right?
Ooh.
Because if you're doing your thing and I'm watching Ben, I'm like, man, Ben is killing it, man. Ben is like, he's making things work. It's everything's clicking for him. How do I make that work for me? We got to pause, because the thing that I don't know is I don't know about Ben's failures behind the scenes. I don't know about, unless you're sharing them, of course, but on the forefront, I'm not seeing. I'm not
I only
seeing.
share, and I share the stuff I want to share. There's a
Right.
lot. There's failures we don't even want to talk about.
And that's exactly my point, right? So unless you can see the whole picture and see everything in perfect view, to make that comparison, it's not totally, correct, accurate, or fair to yourself, because there's things happening behind the scenes that you may know nothing about.
Yeah.
So, yep. You, from the angle of being successful, that's something that you spend a lot of time in helping people understand. So I guess the key elements of success, right? What do they look like, Ben?
That is the most difficult question in the world. Not the most, but I'd say it's top 10. Because it goes back to the finger analogy. Everybody's definition is going to be a little bit unique to themselves. For example, let's say you and your loved one aren't capable of having children. Your element of success is going to look very different than someone who has kids.
Yes.
So for me, at the core, from what I've learned, it's really just fulfillment is the key to success, and money, and loving relationships, and building a family, and connections, and joy, and an excitement all lead to fulfillment. But some people are fulfilled going to their, favorite baseball team with season tickets over
Yes.
100, maybe 80 games a year. Other people are fulfilled, just sitting back and writing and reading with their children playing in the background. Fulfillment is the key, but I feel like the combination to that key to fulfillment is going to be unique for every individual person in one way or another.
Right. So again, the importance of not comparing, because again, we all on our own individual path, right? We are. We're going to get to where we get to, because that's where we're supposed to be, right?
Can I get on a soapbox real quick?
Yeah.
Because talk about comparison. Let's say you are a couple that for whatever reason you're unable to birth children.
Sure.
You might look at this beautiful family on Instagram and say, what if, or feel this jealousy or comparison. Well, just the fact you were born, of the probability, the fact you exist right now is a blessing in itself.
Yes.
What is the probability of you existing? There's a higher probability I get struck by lightning from 2 different bolts simultaneously right now. That's more probable than me being alive right now. Out of the billions of, let's just say, called sperm, I don't know, I'm not a scientist. Out of the billions of opportunities, you were chosen, I was chosen, the listener was chosen. So since maybe I wasn't chosen to be 6'5", maybe someone was chosen to bald. We're both balding. We can't control that.
Right.
But my God, are we lucky to even have the choice to live? I don't know if I'm getting too soapboxy, but it blows my mind. I feel really blessed by it.
Well, so I agree with you. No, you can never be too soapboxy on this podcast. That's for sure. I'll tell you that. But I will say as well that when you start focusing on others and what they have versus what you don't have, you're also doing yourself a disservice. And because we all have inherent skills or gifts, and by focusing on what you don't have, you're not appreciating what you do have. And you're not giving yourself an opportunity to use those skills and gifts and ability to put yourself in a better situation. So, I ain't 6'5" either, but you know what? I got some other stuff. I can do a pretty cool podcast, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can bet you a lot of 6'5" guys can't. right? So it's not about what you don't have. You know, you're not. We're not deficits. We can't see ourselves as deficits, right? It's just it has to be the exact opposite. What am I bringing to the table? What is it that I have? And I want to be clear here, Ben, because I'm not saying ignore the stuff you don't have. You
Mm.
know, absolutely be clear on what you don't have and be clear on how you can get assistance or outside support, whether it be a coach or you're listening to a podcast or a book or whatever. Like, how can you get the support to firm up the deficits that exist in your life? But at the same time, work to your strengths. So very clear, knowing what your strengths are as your weaknesses.
It's so powerful because you could want the designer car. You see someone has that car. You don't know where they started.
No,
You don't know who their family surrounded them with. You
no.
don't even know if they own the car or rented it for a photo or if it's their friends. All you know is that you perceive that they're farther along than you. They're not better than you. They're not smarter than
No.
you. They're not more gifted than you. They're
Yeah,
just farther along. And
right.
if you're moving at a high speed, you're gonna freaking smoke them anyways. So just
That's right.
keep the engine rolling, and you're gonna smoke them. They're not better than you or different. They're
No.
just farther along than you.
And that's why for me I think it's so important when we run into any form of adversity that
Mm.
we keep going, right? It's easy to hit that wall and go and you stop and we feel sorry for ourselves, we sit down. You certainly can speak to that, I'm certain, as well, where you just go, man, this isn't working out, why even bother, let me quit, roll over, whatever. But when we can find the internal fortitude to keep pushing ahead, to persevere, to not give up, to believe that there's something greater on the other side, we will find something greater on the other side, right? And
Hmm.
so the significance and outlasting adversity is really where I'm going with this, because I think
Hmm.
there's great power in us doing so.
Couldn't agree more. And I want to add one tiny nuance.
Yeah,
Even if something isn't better on the other side, it feels good figuring that out rather than saying, what if, I should have, I could have. Even if it ends up not being what you expected it to be, it's still fun to figure that out and to journey towards it.
I know you're absolutely right, because it is a journey. The
Hmm.
pathway that we're on, it is a journey, and in fact, I oftentimes use this analogy that we're on this path, and there's boulders in our way, and we need to find a way to get up, under, around, over, through, whatever, to get on the other side, because that's where all the greatness lies. And the other day I was walking. We had a huge snowfall here in Southern Ontario last weekend, and I was taking my daughter to school, and there was a big snowbank, and we just had to, it was right in the entrance of the schoolway, and we just had to basically climb over that and climb over it, and then we can go on our way. So I said, okay, let me go first. So I climbed over first, and when I got on the other side of the snowbank, there'd been a pool of ice had formed, and so I hit a patch of ice.
Ooh.
I lost my balance for a bit, but I held it and I was able to stand up firm. And I go, yeah, here I thought the snowbank was a problem. That was just one of the problems, right? I didn't know about the patch of ice there. So my point is, we're going to see things, we're going to encounter things that we didn't see, and we still got to respond and react and maneuver through them. The other piece about this analogy I liked a lot is, after I was able to find my footing and be firm, and the ice didn't impact me, I was able to guide my daughter. I was able to,
Mm.
hold her hand and get on and warn her, hey, there's a patch of ice there, right? Be careful. And I just think that when you can do that, take your experiences and then turn them to be of benefit to other people, that's when it's really, really powerful.
We could just end the podcast right now. It's why I find that so beautiful is that's the exact reason why I host my show.
Mhm.
It's to get the wisdom and the experience from the people who have it to people who need it. And I'm often in that needed category. If you saw that ice and you slipped and you almost fell, you can make it so the people behind you don't
Yeah.
have to fall. And that's the whole purpose of why I do what I do. And you couldn't have give better symbolism for the power of that point.
Yeah, sharing is just so important, and that's why I feel it's critical that we be our best audacious selves, right?
Mm.
If I show you how I can put myself out there, and again, use the example of taking that first step, right? I can take that first step, and I can show you that after I've taken that first step, I got to the other side and I'm okay. Guess
Mhm.
what? I've given you permission to now do the same. Right. So we have to be that who we're supposed to be, because it's not only just for ourselves, but for the others around us. And that's critical.
So critical.
Yeah. Tell me about your podcast there, Ben. I mean, I joked and said you got five of them, but not really five, but you fill us in.
Technically, there's like 5.25, and I'm adding more. It's ridiculousness, but
Love it.
I already gave the intro. It's really just getting the wisdom and experience from the people who have it to the people who need it. And we chat with everyone from, budding entrepreneurs to local business owners in my city of Rochester, New York, to worldwide sensations that don't even need to be spending time with me. They already have it all.
Mm,
Um, but it's extracting the wisdom and the life experiences from those people and applying it into our businesses and our life ultimately, because what's business, what's the point if we don't have a fulfilled life? So
yeah.
that's really what it's all about. Right now technically there's 6 segments,
Okay.
um, but instead of like confusing everybody, it's all under Real Business Connections. That's the name
Okay.
of the network. The segments are just segmented based on different styles. So I have a Rochester, New York, that's my hometown. That's actually how the podcast started. It started locally. I have a
That's amazing.
Rochester, New York segment. I have Learn, Speak, Teach, which is an international segment. I've got 15-minute Fridays, which is 15 minutes or less. I've got Ben's Bites, which is just me. I've got the ABC Lunch Break, which is me and 3 friends as a panel. I've got Real Hits. The whole point here, though, is I'm a content maniac. I mean, I have a marketing firm. I love it. I try to meet people at different levels
Yeah.
based on different kinds of episodes and different lengths of episodes, because again it's just a transfer of wisdom. I'm
Yep.
nothing but a bridge. I'm not special. I'm in the learning category, but I like to be that bridge to transfer wisdom, and I don't know what platform my audience needs to listen on, so I try to diversify as good as I can. I'm not going to recommend this because it takes a lot of time, but
Yes.
that's what I'm doing.
Well, I think it's wonderful that you're doing. Again, you talk about the transfers of the wisdom. I think wisdom is meant to be shared. It's not meant to be kept to myself. And I don't tell nobody. And it's not that at all. It's sharing it, and it's spreading it others, making other, enhancing someone else's life. I read the other day. It was a social media post, and it basically said, my autobiography could be someone else's survival guide, and it's so true. What I've gone through, what I've experienced, what has hurt me, can be the difference in reducing someone else's learning curve. And so it really just goes back to the significance and why sharing our experiences is so important.
I don't know what to say. It's so true. It's what do you say? My biography can be someone else's survival guide.
Yeah, it's
Genius.
huge.
And that actually is true for scenarios where someone's like stranding on an island.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
actually a factual statement.
It actually totally is, because you think of how we learn generally, right? The
Yeah,
process of learning involves making mistakes and failing.
right.
That's how you learn. And so when these experts have written these books, certainly, we're at a point now in a society where, experts have built on the work of other experts. But if you sort of follow the trail, that one guy or gal that was the expert, to become an expert, they had to lose a couple times and catch some
Mhm.
L's in the worst way and understand, yeah, that hurt. Yeah, that was painful. Yeah, that didn't work. Now here's what's what. And so learning is integral, but so is failing.
I couldn't agree more. It kind of weaves in what we were saying before. The person we're comparing ourselves to somebody
Yep.
who, again, they're not better than us. They're just farther along. If we can learn from them, if we can learn their plays, get to know their playbook, get to know how they operate and did it, the last thing you want to do is just mimic it every step of the way.
Right.
But we can bring in our own special sauce, learn from 3, 5, 10 different people, know all these different plays, know all these different styles, and then become an expert of our own. So it's a constant evolution. I feel like you said this earlier, like we're no end destination,
Yes.
constantly evolving. And so that person that you're comparing yourself to, take the best from it, and
Yep.
take the best from Audrey, and take the best from Ben, and like keep on extracting the best stuff. And
Yes.
then boom, what that's an audacious life, right? I feel
Yeah.
like it is.
Totally, it totally is 100% bang on. And again, you for me, it does really go back to the impact it has on others, right? That impact is huge. And so you're right. You take the best from here and here and here, and you build you build you. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But when you try to pattern someone else and build an image of someone else, that's where it's problematic, because then you don't know who you are. You don't identify what values that you bring to the table, what your strengths are. You lose those opportunities to gain those things, or build on those things. And so, yeah, Ben, I'm feeling good about life, buddy.
Good. That's what I like to hear. Yeah, dude. And as I'm definitely an over explainer.
Yeah,
I don't always feel good about life.
sure.
I'm bringing up my best self today. But dude, right before I jumped on this podcast, I like to eat dark chocolate after I have lunch. I like to always
Okay.
have a square. And I
Okay.
came in and it was stuck in my throat. And
Wow.
the first 90 seconds before we jumped on to record, I'm just clearing my throat, drinking water. Now my back's sweaty. I'm a little uncomfortable. Like, I'm giving you my best self, but dude, it's not perfect. But
Right.
isn't that part of the enjoyment? Like,
That's it.
it's tricky sometimes. It's fun, you know?
Well, I oftentimes say life is naturally messy, right? There's no aspect of life that's clean and easy and perfect. There is no perfection as far as I'm concerned, because you only get a chance to do this thing called life once, and that's it. And so through the way, you try things, you do things, you experiment things, you learn things, you love things, you hate things, you do all of that. But that builds up the human experience, and when we talk about our experiences, that's what shapes us and molds us, right? It's an experience. I guess the problem, and maybe you can give some insight on, when you're going through one of these experiences that it doesn't feel great or not good, how do you maintain your focus on knowing that this is a necessary part of the process?
Wow. Yeah, so that's a big philosophical question. The experience happening to you isn't necessarily who you are.
Right.
The external circumstances that push and pull you, make you laugh and make you cry, is only a fraction of who you are inside, what your soul is, what you're meant here to do. And it's really easy to get blinded by the experience right in front of us and forget about the mission of who we are and what we're put here to do. So I don't
Yes.
have a perfect answer. I feel like it's a cop out, but I always go to the fingerprint. The other analogy I like to do is there is no particular key to success.
Yeah.
It's a combination lock, and each and every
Mm,
one of us has our own unique combination. Only us know it. I almost feel like it depends is a cop out answer, but that's
right.
usually my answer, because
Right.
who we are is unique, and the external world will try to tell us to be someone we're not, or push us in a direction that often doesn't feel good in the gut. And you said it. If it feels in your gut that you need to make a move, that's the move to make, even if you can't explain it. Even if you can't explain it, external is going to push us in directions. What does your gut say? What do
Right.
you know about yourself? Nobody knows you better than you. And yeah, you got to bring on like a neuroscientist or someone who can bring up the science, because I talk this stuff. I got to admit, I generalize.
Sure.
Anytime I talk to neuroscientists or
Yep.
social scientists, they're like, yeah, this is backed by science. I
Wow.
can't cite the studies, but this is backed by science. We are unique creatures with unique brains, with unique
Yes.
gifts, and the external world tries to make us someone we're not. But if we can stay aligned with who we are, just imagine the stuff we can accomplish.
Totally, totally.
Mind blowing, dude. Mind blowing.
It is, and I think when you look at it from that perspective, like the world's your oyster at that point, right?
Oh,
There's
yeah.
nothing you can't accomplish, or nothing that you can't do, and so I think that's really good, powerful perspective, Ben. And I want to go back to your story when you sort of talked about your. I guess you were hopelessness is a word I guess that kind of comes to mind in terms of where you're at. How do you get through that? You're in a state of hopelessness. You don't feel good about yourself. You're wallowing, whatever, right? How do you find the courage, strength to get up and go?
I'm stuck on the word hopeless, and I think I've actually used it in the past, but I'm way too stubborn to be totally hopeless.
Mm,
I was definitely hoping less. I was definitely in a place where I lacked hope at times because it's a really simple thing. When you look at yourself, and we have bad days, like there's days where I don't sleep at all, I'm going to look like crap. That's just how it works. But when
right.
you look at yourself in the mirror, this is one thing I would do every morning. I have my whole morning routine. Not going to bore you unless you want the whole thing. Part of my routine is affirmations, where I look my freaking bald head in the mirror and I tell myself things and I affirm them into existence
Yeah.
over time. But when you're looking yourself in that mirror and you see tired, bloodshot eyes,
Yep.
and you're looking yourself and you're checking yourself and you're realizing that you're lying to yourself,
Mm,
the only judge, jury, executioner is yourself. And looking at yourself and realizing, oh, I'm saying these things. For example, I'll tell you a few of them. I'm an
yep.
open channel for creative ideas.
Okay.
I act as if I already have what I want.
Oh,
I have these
I love that.
affirmations. I have these affirmations. I am enough. I belong. I have what I need for the clients that I have right now and the ones that are coming. If I'm looking myself in the mirror and being like, dude, you're a liar, then there's a problem. And there's a problem. But once you recognize and aware that the affirmations are who I believe I am.
Yes.
But if I don't look and I'm not living the actions of who I believe I am, who am I? And then you
Yeah.
start kind of like questioning yourself and you get into that comparison. You actually compare who you want to be to who you are, and then you feel like a
Yeah.
schmuck.
Yeah. that's a dangerous one, man.
So I don't know if I was hopeless. I sure didn't have much hope because I didn't
Mm,
like the man in the mirror at that time, and I still haven't perfected it, but I've been doing my best to become the person I was supposed to be.
gotcha. Did you spend a lot of time beating up yourself?
Oh yeah, dude. Every day. Every day. Highly self-critical person, not a perfectionist. I feel like with age and skill and intelligence, you can become more of a perfectionist. And honestly, that sometimes just slows you down in the long run.
Is a dangerous slope to go after, a dangerous thing to chase because you'll always be chasing it and you may never, ever get it. So I hear you loud and clear. Ben, this has been such a great chat, man. I so appreciate you for hanging out here on the Audacious Living podcast. And I do want to ask you, one final question. For that person that's listening, and they're faced with maybe a big decision. They've got to make a big audacious decision or a choice that's in front of them. What would you recommend as a starting point they do? Then they're struggling with it, right? What would you recommend as a starting point?
You named something brilliant that I'm going to do more, and it's go with your gut. What feels right, because analysis paralysis isn't going to get you anywhere. You're going to make a decision. It's going to be a dance. It might be the wrong step. Even if you sprain your ankle, okay, let's not make that decision again. So take
Right,
that first step. Um, and even before that first step, maybe you write down on a piece of paper, who am I?
right.
And you could be a father, a mother, a son, a daughter, a friend, but who are you beyond that? Beyond
Yes,
what the world defines you as, what makes you unique? What is your fingerprint? What are your values? What is your combination lock? And if you understand your values and you follow your gut,
yes.
you're going to be correct 80% of the time. And the 20% of time when you're not correct, you said it, you can learn from that mistake and then teach people so they don't make the mistake you made. So that's most of the thoughts are yours,
Yep.
my friend, but that is what I would recommend the listener do.
Well, I think it's good advice and good suggestions. So thank you for that. For our listeners listening to us and going, man, these guys are kind of on point today. I want to the guy with the long beard. I want to hear more from him. Where can they find out more about you, Ben? Where can they track you down? Where can they look you out?
Yeah, and if they're listening and being like, these guys are on point today, I'm going to assume they're a subscriber. And if they're not a subscriber, click subscribe, click 5 stars. Do that real quick because none of this would be possible without Audley himself. And ultimately, Real Business Connections is the podcast. I'm a marketer, so if I mess this up, DM me and I'll fix it. But you should be able to type in Real Business Connections wherever you found this, and you'll find me. So it's that simple. Click subscribe, type in Real Business Connections, you'll find me.
Got you. Ben, this has been super awesome. It's been great. A lot of fun. I appreciate the insights. Thank you for sharing your powerful story. Again, we spent a lot of time talking about the impact of sharing and why that's important, and you've demonstrated that today. And I'm sure that's guaranteed to inspire someone going, yeah, okay, I got to get up now. Right? I was in this zero state. Now I can be a hero tomorrow, right? And so, thank you, and all the best, my friend.
All the best. Thanks for having me.
Back we are on the podcast, and I got to send a shout out and thanks to my man Ben for joining me here and giving up his time and really helping us understand the process of life and from his perspective. I really thought he made some good points, around personal development and how we can get better and why we shouldn't compare ourselves to others, because our path is definitely our path. So thank you, Ben, for being here. When I think back to my conversation that we just had, I really appreciated so much of what Ben had to say, but if there's just one thing that I would take from our chat, it would have to be this. Hitting rock bottom can be an incredibly challenging experience, whether it's losing a job, going through a breakup, or dealing with a major health issue. It can leave you feeling lost, alone, and unsure of what to do next. To rise from the bottom, first off, take responsibility for that situation that you're in. While you may not be entirely at fault, taking responsibility for what you can control will help you move forward. This means acknowledging your mistakes, accepting your current circumstances, and committing to making positive changes. Focus on self-care. Taking care of yourself is essential when you're trying to recover from that rock bottom feeling. Make sure that you're getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, and exercising on a regular basis. Also make time for those activities that you enjoy and that bring you peace and happiness, because that will take you far away. And then lastly, learn from your mistakes and reflect on what went wrong and what you could have done differently. Use this knowledge to make positive changes and avoid making the same mistakes in the future. Remember, if you walk away from a situation without learning the lesson, that's when you've truly failed. It's really important to remember that hitting rock bottom doesn't have to be the end of your story. There is, there's another inning. In baseball, you get, 3 swings at the ball. And with hard work, determination, and a positive attitude, you can turn things around and achieve the success that you're after, and maybe you might even hit it out of the park. Now that's audacious. We've come to the end of another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, I send my thanks and appreciation to our amazing listeners and those lovers of audaciousness for your tremendous ongoing support. As I said, it's you folks that keep this thing going, so I appreciate it, and I send my thanks. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.